So wonderful to see so many people. Amazing.
Welcome, everybody. And I've written a question in the chat. Where are you from and what drew you to this lecture? So if you want to just jot something down, that would be nice just to hear what brought you here tonight.
I have to get my head around it when you say, what brought you here tonight? It's
morning.
We're
Sunday
ahead morning.
Of you. We're ahead of you, Gabrielle, and I can tell you it's a nice sunny day tomorrow.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's pouring with rain here, so.
Baruch Hashem, I heard the Kinneret really went up so much over the weekend, like 15 centimeters.
Wow.
Wow. At least a little bit of good news.
Lindsay, I saw your face and I thought, I remember you. And I was like, do I remember you or am I imagining it? So I'm happy to see that I wasn't imagining it.
Yeah, I've shared your idea about the mikveh being a mirror with lots of women because I train in color teachers and they're like, wow, this is so different to what we hear, and they've loved it. So yes.
Fantastic.
I remember you.
That's great to hear.
Your words have spread far.
Wonderful.
It's good to see that people got their videos on as well. It's nice.
Yeah, it's good to see who's here.
Yeah.
I might have to turn mine off, but I'll be listening.
Hi from Melbourne. We've got a few highs from Melbourne. They're here because their mums told them about it.
Oh.
That's good. Good mums.
So for anybody who just joined, we'd love to know what is bringing you here today, and if there's anything specific. Oh, not everybody sees it. Only the hosts will see it, because I don't see it either.
I also don't see the chat.
1 second, we'll try and make it that everybody can see the chat.
Some people are curious about the topic tonight, and that's what's brought them here as well.
Hi, Thea.
Hi, Gabrielle.
This is a real scoop for me. Thea was my color teacher, so now I'm feeling this is a role reversal.
Yes, I'm happy to learn from good people. Here we go. I'm really, really curious. So here we go.
You're in for a treat, Robertson. You're in for a treat.
Listen, I tell you, I can't access my email on the computer, so I can just see one person at a time. I'm doing this on my phone. It's so annoying, but okay, can't be helped. Okay, doesn't matter. Whatever.
Knowing that you're here and that you're able to hear and see is wonderful.
Okay, so thank you everyone for. Thank you everyone for bringing some comments into the chat. Welcome to an evening at the Eden Centre, where we will courageously confront the impact of intimacy, shedding of the impact on war on intimacy, shedding light on a silent struggle and offering guidance towards healing and connection as well. I'm your moderator, Simona Weinstein, and I'm honoured to guide us through this evening's exploration alongside our esteemed guests, Yonina Rubenstein and Gabrielle Hodds. Yonina Rubenstein, with a Bachelor of Education, has revolutionised sexuality education. She's the author of the internationally acclaimed book Sexuality After Childbirth and When Kids Don't Speak, and runs the highly popular course Growing Together, Raising Sexually Healthy Children. Gabrielle Hodds, a seasoned speech therapist, Kala teacher and intimacy counsellor, brings decades of experience nurturing couples on their pathway to healthy marriages. Originally from London, Gabrielle lives in Ramat Beit Shemesh with her husband and 4 children. The Eden Centre is committed to empowering women around the mikveh experience and strengthening Jewish families. They run programs and publish booklets around infertility, menopause and breast cancer, And since October the 7th, they've been working with issues of relationships and intimacy during wartime, supporting the wives and families immediately impacted by the war. Tonight's program is free, and I invite you to consider making a donation so they can continue to offer similar programs to the public at no cost. And I'll share a link in the chat with you as well. Just a gentle reminder, your well-being is our top priority. So if at any point you need to step back to maintain your emotional safety, please do so. Self-care is key. The session is being recorded and will be made available within 24 hours, so look out for it in your email. And our chat box is open for questions, so feel free to send them to Alana, who is a co-host, and to share your thoughts and seek guidance. The impact of war on intimacy is a conversation that evokes raw emotions and unspoken struggles. I discussed it with a few people of different ages, and all of them responded with, "I can't believe you just said it," or "I thought it was just me." And I received the same response 100% of the time. And so I thought it necessary to give this silent conversation an audible voice. The news reports, imagery, WhatsApp messages, and dinner conversations can paint vivid pictures in our minds. And these images linger, especially when they touch on themes of intimacy and sexual violence, silently weighing us down. They can dampen our libido, making it difficult to embrace vulnerability. Our capacity for joy can diminish, overshadowed by feelings of guilt and sadness. And it can be a real struggle. One may find themselves unable to be present with their partner, their mind haunted by graphic images. And why aren't we talking about it? While there's extensive dialogue about bringing perpetrators to justice and rescuing hostages, there's a notable absence of discussion about the ongoing impact of October 7th on women, both within Israel and outside. The ripple effects extend beyond geographical boundaries, affecting intimacy of all ages. Gabrielle, do we outside of Israel, husbands at home, possibly no kids in the army, because some of us do have, even have a right to voice our struggle?
Of course you do. That was my first, the question even asked like that brings tears to my eyes, because of course you do. We're all Jewish people, and it doesn't matter where you're living, anywhere in the world. We all care. We all feel so connected. There's no competition here or pecking order that if we're in Israel, we have the right to be struggling, and that all the Jews living all around the world have no right. Okay, this October the 7th has affected everybody, of course, the Jews more so, but I would hope also universally other communities and people who aren't Jews, I hope, are affected by it too. It doesn't matter whether you're physically here in Israel or you are many miles away. If you're a Jew, then your heart is here, even if your body isn't. And some of you have children, or nephews or nieces or brothers or sisters or parents living in Israel, and that makes it even more, you're not only seeing everything on the news, but you're actually hearing about them going into war and worrying about them. So I think, of course, everybody is in this place where you are stressed and worried about what's going on. I would say being outside of Israel has even more unique challenges than being in Israel, because you're not here, we're living it here. Because you're not living it actually in your day-to-day life, you feel even more so that you want to be connected. So you're probably watching the news possibly more than us. I don't particularly want to watch the news. I'm experiencing it here within my home. So I'm not as glued to the news. I would imagine that you are watching more news probably in Chutz La'aretz, out of Israel, than we are doing here in Israel. Your news is less censored than ours. Okay, we often don't get to see some of the things that you're seeing, because we have censorship and we don't see a lot of the graphic images. So I would actually say that, you are often experiencing things in a stronger way than we are here. I think also another thing that's very unique to people living outside of Israel is the fear of the growing anti-Semitism. And I hear that, this program started out for the Australian community. I know we've opened it up for South Africans and British, but I think probably in all of the communities there have been anti-Semitic incidents and a lot of threats and a lot of fear surrounding that. So if you want your home to be your safe haven, and intimacy happens in a safe space, but you're not feeling safe in your home and in your community, that's really scary, and that's going to be coming into your house. Okay, that's going to be coming into your bedroom, because that's how you're feeling. So and I think also this feeling wanting to be connected, and I feel also you're feeling wanting to be like bear witness to what's going on, and to be people who can then pass on the message to maybe some of your non-Jewish colleagues or people around you, so that they should know. Okay, all of those things are impacting your level of stress, anxiety, cortisol in your body. And Janina will continue to talk about these things, but for sure, these things are going to affect your mood, your ability to be intimate, and we'll open this up as during the next half an hour to 45 minutes.
And yet, by bearing witness, thank you, Gabrielle, by bearing witness with the intentions of sharing it with the people, with our colleagues, with our family, whoever it is, we're actually being impacted by it. And we've received many questions about the loss of libido and desire since the beginning of the war. For example, when levels of anxiety, somebody has sent in, when levels of anxiety are high, such as during a war period or periods of anti-Semitism, as we are feeling terribly here in Melbourne, one partner may not feel like being intimate at all, whilst the other partner may desperately want it, because that is a feeling of safety for them. And it becomes more than an issue of desire discrepancy here. Or they have a really good marriage and they're trying very hard not to read the news, but still their libido has almost disappeared and they feel sort of numb. Gets to the end of the day, they're tired, but it's only been since the start of the war. Yonina, what would you say to that?
Thank you. So first of all, I want to say that we know there are so many experiences that couples have of desire discrepancies, like you mentioned, Simona, but the war, stress, and trauma can exacerbate it. And they can also create discrepancies or issues where there weren't any before. Okay, so we know that stress and trauma affect all the systems in our body, and I'll go into that in a minute, including our sexual systems and our desire system. And I want to introduce the concept of secondary trauma, right? You asked at the beginning, and Gabrielle addressed it beautifully, if people in Chutz La'aretz, they're not even in Israel, how can they be experiencing the same levels of trauma? So aside from the fact that there are unique challenges to people living outside of Israel, there's also watching the news, watching the violence happening or that happened or is continuing to be happening, creates an effect called secondary trauma that really, really impacts people who are watching it. Your body feels like it's going through those experiences. It doesn't, our body, our physical systems aren't able to differentiate and say that's happening to someone else. When we are seeing a disturbing image, when we're seeing violent or graphic news footage, our body goes into fight, flight, or freeze mode. It feels like that is an imminent threat. And the way our body reacts when it feels like it is under threat, when it is in danger, is by shutting down anything that's not crucial for immediate survival. So if that's relating to sexual desire, it'll shut down, like hit the brakes for us to be feeling desire. We also know that stress, especially ongoing stress, chronic stress, which is what most Jews around the world are experiencing for the past 4 months, right? It's been 4 months and we've continuously, with no end in sight, experiencing different levels of stress, from anti-Semitism, from a Facebook post that a colleague shared, from a new news report. The levels of cortisol and adrenaline, like Gabrielle mentioned, in our bloodstream are very high. our body is used to going through fluctuations, right? We have a peak, we're feeling stressed, and then we're able to relax and release, and our body really gets back to baseline. But when we are continuously experiencing more and more waves of stress without the ability to reset, it affects our immune system, it affects our appetite, it affects our sleep, right? It affects us in so many different ways. And one of those ways is also in our ability to experience desire and our ability to be present in our body and be intimate with our partners. I want to mention, before I give a little bit of hope that there is something to do, that it's not all doom and gloom, is that stress and trauma affect people differently. Most people have the experience that I just described now, which is really things being shut down, whereas really functioning on more immediate basic survival, and less ability to experience desire and pleasure. But there are people, about 15% of the population, according to studies, that actually in times of stress experience hypersexual arousal. So they're experiencing more arousal and desire. And there are also people where they might not be feeling sex-based desire, stress-based desire, but they might view or experience their intimate relationship as a safe space, as an anchor in the time of storm. So while one partner might be feeling like, I'm so stressed, everything that's going on, all of this traumatic information is making me want to create a safe space for myself and I can't be intimate. For some people, they're actually saying, wait, our relationship, our intimacy, that's where I turn to when I feel like the world is topsy-turvy. I need a hug from you. I need to feel close to you physically, because that helps me center myself. That helps me deal with all of the stress that's going on. So a lot of couples might be experiencing that difference, where one person is saying, this is too much. Everything is too much. I need to take a break. I can't think of intimacy right now. Don't give me a hug. Don't hold my hand. Don't snuggle next to me when we're watching a movie. I'm trying to escape thinking about anything. And the other partner is actually seeking out that closeness and affection. Okay, so what can we do? I want to give a couple very practical, simple tips for how we can handle this ongoing stress. Because like I said, our bodies, our system is built in a way that we can handle stress, but it needs to be able to come and go. And so if we can't get rid of the stress right now, because in our to my great despair, I can't end the war tomorrow or today, and I can't make all of the stress disappear, but we can do something which is called completing the stress response cycle. Meaning, we experience stress, cortisol, adrenaline, our body reacts to it. Our body reacts to the threat. And then if we don't do anything with that response, it kind of gets stuck in our body. What we want to do is we want to help it move through our body. So even though the stress is ongoing, our physical systems are going through some sort of cycle and not just staying stuck in that experience. So the first thing to do is to recognize that we're in stress. Okay, is to recognize that the experiences we're having are affecting us, not just to say, well, this is what it's like for everyone. If my neighbors are managing to continue life as normal, I should be able to as well. To recognize that we're living through unprecedented times and that there's an effect, and to notice where we're feeling it affects us, right? Some people might be feeling it more in their intimacy. Some people might be feeling it more in other areas of life. And then I want to introduce, and Gabrielle will help me out here, but 8 very practical things from the research done by Emily Nagoski, the author of Come As You Are and Burnout. And she actually just published another book, which I forget the name of. And she discovered that, like I said, we might be living in chronic stress, but we can help our body move through the stress response cycle to release. And once our body's able to release the stress, we achieve some form of baseline, and we're able to breathe a little bit better and to turn our experience to other things that aren't basic survival. So one thing that came up from the study is movement, right? We know exercise is good for you, but it doesn't have to be working out at the gym. It doesn't have to be going for a long run. Those are great, but can even be putting on a song and dancing while you're straightening up the living room. It can be doing a couple stretches before bed, something to help move our body and create flow so that the stress hormones don't get stuck and impact and have negative impacts on our health and mental well-being. We can also do everything I'm mentioning now can be done either on our own as a partner who wants to make space for experiencing desire, or it can be done together as a couple, either to help create a safe, intimate space or to just work through this together. So movement, again, it could be slow dancing together in the kitchen at the end of the day. It can be going for a walk together on Shabbos afternoon. Those are all great ways of connection through movement. The next thing is breathing. Okay, coming back to our breath, most of us don't notice that we actually are breathing very shallowly from our chest, and we're not getting oxygen flowing through the rest of our body. So taking a moment a few times throughout the day, you can put a reminder on your phone to take 3 to 5 deep breaths, right? 5 to 8 breaths, seconds in, hold for 4, and then release for 8 is really, really important. Number 3, casual, friendly social interaction. So this means going out to a coffee shop and saying hi to the barista and just being reminded that the world is actually a good place. Not everyone is out together. Not everything is terrible. The sun is still shining from what I hear in Australia. And just being reminded that people are good, smiling. We have mirror neurons. Being able to smile at someone else and have them smile back at us does a lot to reduce the impact of stress. Another way is to laugh. And if we're not able to laugh, to even reminisce and remember times that we laughed. So looking through pictures on your phone, remembering good times, remembering times when you were happy, it reminds our body again that we're in a safe space, that we're not always under stress, and it helps our body reset. And it's obviously amazing if we can laugh together with our partner, to do something fun, to play a game together, to remember happy times we had. Gabrielle, you want to do the next one?
Yeah, I think crying. I think it's good to cry together sometimes. Some of us have a hard time being sort of vulnerable and allowing ourselves to cry. But I think that it's okay to cry, and sometimes sharing a good cry together is a healthy way to release all the stress. Doing something creative, having fun together. I don't know, I'm sure there are places where you can do like painting pottery, or there are woodworking activities, or doing a puzzle in your home together, or playing a game, or I don't know, making a meal together, something not out of the ordinary, but finding something that you can work on, working with clay, anything like that. Being creative is also a wonderful, wonderful way of releasing tension. I know here in Israel we just had a project of making the red poppies grow in the south of Israel, and often at this time of year there's a festival that's called Darom Adom, the Red South, which this year is quite ironic because the red represents all the blood. And they had a project here running through all the towns of Israel of making as many laniot, these poppies, out of clay, and it was an activity that was opened up to women, and it was so therapeutic. Women would just go spend the evening together making these beautiful poppies made out of ceramics, and everyone came out of it just feeling like they'd had a time to just let go, do something that was going to be used to decorate cities around Israel, and connect with other women going through the same thing. So being able to do things within your community as well. You could do creative things by yourself, you can do it with your spouse, but you can also do it with your friends and with your community. And then the last thing I would say is just body self-care, allowing yourself to be pampered and have a manicure or a pedicure, or it could just be within your own home. I don't know, I just got my delivery of some beautiful natural, oh, you can't see them here, but beautiful soaps with beautiful essential oils, which I've leaned into since the war, and I found that really helped me unwind. So just doing things for yourself physically is also really super important.
Yeah, and I'll add the last one also, bodies, even simple things like when we take a shower, right? We can either rush it and be like in and out, or we can take that extra 10 seconds to really take a deep breath of the shampoo and enjoy the sense of the hot water on our back. And that those small tweaks can change something which we might experience as just a basic survival function to something that it can actually be an act of self-care and releasing stress. And the last one is affection. We mentioned casual, friendly social interactions, right? This is a little bit different. Affection from someone that you like, and it can either be verbal affections, right? So exchanging pleasantries with your spouse at the beginning or end of the day, like, honey, have a great day, or I really missed you, or you look so nice today, I'm so glad to see you. And it can also be physical. We know from studies, for example, the Gottmans talk about a 6-second kiss, which is long enough to start releasing those feel-good hormones, or a 20 to 40-second hug. And this, again, can be with your spouse, it can be with a friend, it can be with your children. Can help our children release the stress that they've also been feeling. All of these 8 ideas are research proven to help us reset the stress response, to complete the stress response cycle in our body. And this is so crucial for intimacy, because when we are feeling stressed, when our body is stuck in a state of stress, it's going to be very, very hard for us to be able to experience pleasure and connection and intimacy and desire. So the first step is to be able to help our body come back to baseline, to feel safe, and that creates space for us to be able to experience desire.
There are so many amazing ideas there, Janina and Gabrielle. And yet, Gabrielle, once people are able to release the stress and be intimate, we've been hearing from women who have been experiencing flashbacks of sexual violence, and it interrupts, obviously, a moment of intimacy. And how would we handle that?
Okay, so I think it's super important. And I think what Janina was just mainly talking about was really helping our body, looking at the body piece, and how when we're feeling stressed and the cortisol is high and the stress is there in our body, we feel it in different places, and how we can release that. And I would say that now this question sort of leads me more to thinking about what we can do with our mind. Okay, our mind is here to protect us. Okay, our mind doesn't always it's here to protect us, but it doesn't always do it in the most helpful of ways. Okay, so when we have a threat in front of us, we go into this fight, flight, freeze mode, and our amygdala is activated, and our brain or our mind is here telling us all sorts of things, and the images are coming in. And just at the moment when we're feeling most vulnerable and to be intimate, we need to expose ourselves both emotionally and physically, and to be in that situation. And that's when our mind decides to bring in all these images. Okay, not actively, it happens. We don't choose for it to happen. And in a way, we want to figure out how can we sort of leave the conveyor belt of thoughts outside the bedroom door and not let it come in. And I think this is true, by the way, about anything. We as women often will have many thoughts that go. It's the things that we're going to talk about now are things that we need to learn to practice even in normal times. Okay, as women, we are often juggling a home and work and family and lots of different things. And sometimes for us, we think about intimacy with our husband as something that's on the last thing on our list. Okay, and we first need to do the laundry and the shopping and the cooking and get the house straight, and then we can let her go. And we can't always do that because our list is often, it's just not finished. Okay, it never ends. And so the skills that I'm going to talk about here now are things we can use about also in just day-to-day life, in order how can we sort of put ourselves in a place where we are able to let those thoughts sort of go by. So I think the first thing is recognizing them. We need to recognize that they are here. Need to recognize that we have thoughts. We sometimes have scary thoughts, and things are going to pop into our head because that's what thoughts do. Okay, and they're not going to necessarily stay, but they do trigger us and they do impact our feelings. I think it's also okay to, once we sort of notice them, and and I like to use the strategy of just saying, not like, I don't know, I'm so stressed, or I'm so worried, or I keep on seeing those terrible images that they keep on putting on the news, is noticing. I'm noticing that I'm having the thought that. And the minute that you can sort of not just say I'm stressed, but I'm noticing that I'm having the thought that I'm stressed, you're already able to sort of distance yourself from the thought. You can look at it. Okay, it's not hooking you, it's not shaking you up. You're able to look at it with a little bit of distance, and once you've been able to notice it and name it, you then are able to share it. Okay, so you can already start creating intimacy with your husband on an emotional level by sharing with your spouse what it is that you're noticing and what it is that you're feeling. Okay, and so you're letting them in a little bit to what's going on and how that's impacting you.
I want to add to that, Gabrielle, because you mentioned that our mind wants to protect us. And for a lot of women who either have experienced some form of sexual violence in the past, being exposed, we spoke about the secondary trauma, for a lot of them, it can be really triggering to have seen these things on the news or heard about these things on the news. And so really also recognizing that our mind, our body is trying to protect us. It's saying, wait, don't be intimate with your partner. You know that it's dangerous. You heard about what happened somewhere else, right? So also recognizing that we're not fighting with our body or with our mind, to say, oh, thank you for trying to protect me, or thank you for reminding me. Right now, though, I want to create that distance so that I can decide what I want to do with this thought. And that's also because when we try and fight, and when there's a lot of resistance to something that's coming up, it usually just creates a snowball effect. And when we're able to just accept it and even think it, oftentimes it'll go away on its own.
Yeah, I often say to it something like, thank you, but no thank you. Thanks for reminding me, but no thank you, not now. Or sort of trying to imagine it as, and what we don't want to do is exactly as Yonina was saying, we don't want to resist it, okay? By trying to deny them and push the thoughts away, they usually just get bigger. And when we're trying to push them away, then we sort of become anxious about the anxious thoughts. I'm like, well, but I know they're going to come back in again, and I know, and we just want to be able to say, I'm noticing them. I'm noticing the thoughts are going to come and go. Sometimes they'll feel a little bit stronger. Sometimes they'll feel a little bit smaller. Sometimes they'll be sort of more, hanging out on, there in the background. And just to be able to say that's okay. I know that's my mind is just here protecting me. Thank you, but no thanks. Maybe a nice idea that, Russ Harris, who's actually an Australian therapist who deals with acceptance and commitment therapy, he likes to talk about, naming the story. I know that's the doom and gloom story, or I know that's my worry story. I know that's my, my raincoat protecting me here, and sort of imagining it as a channel on a radio, and just turning down the volume a little bit, sort of saying, can I, sometimes you're listening, there's music in the background and you've been doing lots of things, you haven't even noticed that the radio has been on. And then all of a sudden a song will come on that you love, and all of a sudden you notice it. And hang on, it was there all the time, but you weren't tuning into it. So being able to notice I'm having these thoughts, and at the moment it's like the volume has gone up. What can I do to try and help the volume of all these thoughts and images just turn down a little bit of the volume? So sometimes we go back to the breathing, okay? Just focusing on our breath with some type of visual image. So I don't know, I personally love a good hot cappuccino. So I imagine my hot, beautiful mug. Again, I'm very into beautiful ceramic mugs. I'm into pottery. So choosing my favorite mug that I have poured hot water in first to warm it up, and then have my cappuccino. And I imagine myself holding it and then breathing in to smell the yummy smell of the coffee. And I'm breathing it in, and then it's too hot to drink, so I'm cooling it down. Okay. And if you prefer hot chocolate, it could be over hot chocolate. You could do all sorts of different, or it could be soup. It could be anything that you're imagining, or bringing from the Jewish tradition. I often talk about Havdalah breathing. We have the Havdalah ceremony where we breathe in the basamim, the spices, and we take a breath in of that, and then we blow out the candle. So by connecting our breathing, which just calms down our system, together with an image, when we're having to imagine a cup of coffee or a hot chocolate or a soup or Havdalah, we are not able at that same time to be thinking about the other images, and it puts another image in our head. Okay, often it's useful to try and think of what we can do and not what we don't want to do. Because when we're saying don't think, what do we do? Of course we think of it. So we want to try and channel, that, or imagining putting those images on leaves that are floating down a stream, or on a cloud that's flying in the sky, and it's just going to slowly pass away. And it might come back, because clouds do come back. Okay, they move. But if you can imagine putting that image somewhere else and let it float away from you, and notice it outside of yourself, and then come back into your values and the things that are important for you, and that you're here now in the bed with your spouse, and try and focus on your 5 senses, that is often something helpful. So that's another thing that we try and do sometimes to calm ourselves down, is just hone in on our 5 senses. What can I see? Let's notice what I can see around me. What can I hear? Okay, what can I touch? What can I smell? What can I taste? And again, when we focus into our 5 senses, that often also really, really brings us back into here and now, And then the thoughts which are taking us away from the situation sort of can somehow go a little bit into the background. Okay, and I would say that if these things feel like, nah, they're not going to work, I am so anxious, and every time I come back into an intimate space, it is totally taking over, and I've tried all these things and they just don't work for me. I'd say then maybe it's really worth consulting with a health professional or someone who can help you, either a trauma therapist, a regular counselor. There are some people who do, I know Via does this, Rebbetzin Kimchi, tapping and using emotional freedom techniques, which are also a really good way of releasing stress that's going on in your body, and just seeking out the people who actually can help you, because keeping trauma within for a long time, sort of as Jonina said before, is like it snowballs, and we don't want that to be happening.
Thank you, Gabrielle. Jonina, did you want to add to that? I thought no. Thank you, Gabrielle. Those ideas are very powerful as well, because to be able to witness and step the images away from you so that you can have that distance between you and those images makes a big difference. And finding that space, I suppose what we're talking about is finding that space where people can feel safe enough to feel vulnerable, safe enough to feel a bit more exposed, I suppose, emotionally and literally as well. So how does one create that safe bubble for intimacy during these stressful times and not let those worries and distractions, we've spoken about it a bit, that when we're wanting to connect with our spouse, but they keep on interfering with them. And we're hearing it is a bit of a game with our minds as well, but also we've got physical strategies that you've outlined for us also. For some, the guilt of experiencing any kind of pleasure or allowing themselves any kind of intimacy is simply overbearing. And they're asking themselves, how can I enjoy a hug? Or how can I enjoy a snuggle when there are women who have lost their husbands, or my Jewish sisters are being held hostage? An image that comes to mind when I was in Israel, when I went to the Kikar, the hostage square, yes, and there was a tent, and outside a tent was built, and on the floor there was women's legs. That's it. That's all you saw. It's strong imagery. It's very, very strong imagery. People are asking, how can I allow myself to just enjoy a snuggle or a hug with these intrusive thoughts?
So I want to answer with a mind-body model, meaning there are things that once we understand them as a concept, they give us permission. And once we give ourselves permission, we also want to learn how to embody that permission. So meaning we might understand something as, this is really important, I should be intimate with my spouse or my partner. But even though I understand that and agree with that on a cognitive level, we don't always feel it or are able to experience it physically. So I want to start off by talking about the cognitive level for a minute, the value of intimacy in Jewish life, and then we'll talk about how we can actually translate that into physical experience. So I think a lot of times, like Gabrielle said at the beginning, we kind of think of sexual intimacy or physical intimacy in a relationship as another thing on our to-do list, and oftentimes it gets pushed to the bottom of it. But when we look at our Jewish tradition, when we look in Jewish sources and values, we see that actually in the Jewish concept of life, of community, of the world, the Jewish family is really at the heart and center. And the heart and center of that is the couple. And the heart and center of a couple's relationship is actually their intimate relationship. We know that in the Beit HaMikdash, right, in the Kodesh Kodashim, in the holiest of holies, there were the Kruvim, the cherubs, who it says in the Gemara, they were intertwined like a man and a woman, right? In the most holy place is this intimate relationship between partners. And when we understand that the best response to the violence, to the violation, to the war and the destruction that we've been experiencing as a people is actually connecting to the core of love and connection in our relationships, that strengthening the Jewish home is the best response to the destruction. it kind of gives us it gives us on one hand permission to be able to experience that pleasure and physical relationship. And it also turns it not just into permission, but it turns it into a powerful response, right? When we are experiencing pleasure, we can take that energy. And I say pleasure on purpose. I'm not just talking about sexual intimacy or physical intimacy, even just putting on hand cream and enjoying that sensation, or like Gabrielle mentioned, drinking our cup of cappuccino, going out for coffee with a friend, buying flowers to make yourself healthy, experiencing physical pleasure is so important to combat that fight, flight, or freeze, to combat the anti-Semitism and the idea that the Jewish people don't deserve to exist. I remember Esther Perel, who is a thought leader in the field of sexuality. Her parents are both Holocaust survivors. And she speaks about how they never spoke to her about sex. They never spoke to her about pleasure, but she said everything she learned about eroticism and about sensuality, she learned from watching the way they lived life. That she said they survived this experience that people wanted them dead. And they said, we're not just going to survive, we're going to thrive. And as Jewish people nowadays, the best response that we can have, even though it's so hard, is to choose life, not just to choose survival, but to choose pleasure, to choose joy, right? And this is a huge tool of resilience, is being able to not just be knocked down and stay down and be like, we can't imagine anything else, but to say, no, people are trying to knock us down. We are going to find the power within us to connect to our core values of bringing sanctity back into our relationships, of experiencing pleasure. So I wanted to say is that when we're experiencing pleasure, is we can take that energy and channel it, right? If we want to think of what we can do, not just understanding in our mind the permission and the power, but also to use that energy. Our sexual energy is our life force energy. And when we connect to pleasure, when we connect to intimacy, to physical intimacy, to sexual intimacy, we can even channel that energy and send it. We've heard this from a couple of different people. Channel it to Gaza. You're hugging your child, you're hugging your spouse. Imagine all that warmth and love, and send it to wrap up the hostages. Send it as like a force field of protection to Israel, to our loved ones. Love and connection is powerful. It is a powerful force. It's not just something that we do as part of our life. It's a central part of our values as a Jewish person and as Jewish people. And it's an actual energy and power that we can use to create and to change reality. So we can, once we understand that on a cognitive level, it gives us.
I think, Yonina, I would even add is a cognitive, and it's it's kinesiology. Like, it really, there are energies, and we very much believe in tefillot, and our tefillot, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, create change. And I think the way that we, our energies and the way we're looking at something, and even though we feel guilty, our guilt isn't making the situation any better. Somehow so we can say it's okay. It is okay for me to be enjoying things even when bad things are happening. Both things can be true. I can have hostages who are suffering, and our soldiers who are freezing cold and who are fighting for their lives, and families who are suffering, who have lost people, and that all can be true. And I can be living my life to be the best human being and the best Jewish woman that I can be. And how can I be doing that? Because by me just sitting here trying to suffer isn't actually doing anything good, and it's going against our values, and it's not helping our exactly, that is not the way, the Jewish way. It's not the resilience. We want to be able to let Hamas know that we are here to stay, we are here to live. And I would bring in here the Nashim Tzidkaniot, the holy women, who we say that the Jewish people were redeemed from out of Egypt, and Galum Mitzrayim, they were taken out of Egypt because of the righteous women. And what was it? It wasn't these righteous women were necessarily doing mitzvot. I'm sure they were, but the story that is given is, what does that mean? That it was the merit of these righteous women. The women during the time when the men were in slavery would beautify themselves, would take mirrors, okay, and go. I imagine now, and it's the first time actually now during this war that I really could imagine this midrash. And really understood what it meant. These men were broken. They were slaves. They weren't feeling manly. They were tired. What did they want to live for? They didn't want to bring more life into the world. They could just see how much they were suffering. And all of a sudden, their wives were coming and trying to flirt with them and entice them into relations to bring the next generation into the world, to create this life force. And wow. And again, you hear some, you can connect into some other women here in Israel who have unfortunately suffered some great losses. If you can listen to recordings of the wife of Elisha Levenstein speaks in the most inspiring way about exactly that. We are here, we need to carry on living and remember that, and being able to be in a place where we can invest in our sexual intimacy with our husbands, and remember that that's what Jewish life is about, not only for procreation, but for the mitzvah of onah, which is the mitzvah of pleasuring each other, loving your spouse as you love yourself. This is actually this is the response, and this is something productive that we can do at this time. And again, we are speaking about as many ways as we can to help us that when we're not in the mood, but to remember that there doesn't need to be any guilt about it. This is exactly the Jewish value that we're talking about. Tzipora, I see that you have a question, but I think we're gonna. Simona, do you want to answer questions in the middle?
I think let's finish. We have 5 more minutes, and then we'll open the questions.
Yeah.
I just want to add one more. We're going to hold the questions until the end. I want to add one.
It's not a question. It's not a question. It was. I just wanted to share that it is very powerful, and especially for us as women, to connect, because it's Mishnechnas Adar Marbin B'Simcha, and the whole union of Simcha is at the core of what we're talking about. And this Simcha, this caring about the soldiers, sending good vibes, this is the practical thing now to do. Not only should we not feel guilty, we should embrace it, because this is what we have to do. And Hashem has given us 60 days of potential extra koyach to somehow materialize this simcha, and women do it the best.
Thank you.
That's all.
So I want to add one more. Thank you. That's beautiful. I want to relate to one more source, one more source of that connects to what we were speaking about, and then we will give a few more physical tools of how to embody what we were talking about, and we'll open up to questions. So in addition to the Nashim Tzidkaniyot, there's also a source that there was more than one Aron Brit, more than one Ark of Covenant. There was one that stayed in the Beit HaMikdash, and then there was one that went out to war. And there's this concept of Aron Hashem Alech Lifnechem. When the Jewish people went out to war, they went out being guided by the Aron, by the Ark of the Covenant. And what we just mentioned of how what was the symbol there were the kruvim, were the cherubs who were like a man and women entwined in one another. And this idea that the Jewish people, even when we go out to war, we're not going out to wage war and to kill people and to destroy as much as we can. We're going out led by this value of intimacy, by this value of love, of connection, of family, of relationships. And if we're giving this lecture within the framework of the Eden Center, which does so much work around mikvah, right? The core idea of mikvah as a space for to be able to connect to the sanctity of the Jewish people, to be able to sanctify to our physical relationship as well. And I think having those ideas as a guiding light can be really, really helpful when we're plagued by these thoughts of guilt, of shame, of how can I, of saying not how can I. This is what the Jewish people is all about. This is how we wage war, is with love, is with sanctity, is with connection. Okay, so how do we do that physically?
Into the mikveh as well, just talking about the mikveh is a place of sanctity and purification. And again, when we feel that our Jewish women and Jewish families have been violated, this is literally the antidote to the violation. So I think the last thing that I would just like to mention here is that, so we've mentioned that we're often starting here with minus desire, okay? There's a woman called Rosemary Basson who developed a very important model in the year 2000, which is called the sexual response cycle. And she talks about the fact that often as women, we don't have spontaneous desire, okay? We have what's called responsive desire. So if I can sort of give you the way to imagine that, I don't know, if you're thinking it's just, I don't know, it's now you're gonna finish, we're gonna finish this meeting, and you're thinking to yourself, I'm not hungry, I ate dinner before I went into this meeting. But then when you come out of your the room where you're watching the computer, someone has put on the table a beautiful spread of food. All of a sudden, okay, I quite fancy that. And without too much difficulty, you'll be tucking in, if it was a beautiful fruit platter or a vegetable platter or some delicious cakes or whatever it might be. All of a sudden, you weren't hungry. If someone had said, "Are you hungry?" No, I'm not hungry. But the food is put in front of you, and all of a sudden, you are really eager to eat the beautiful food. Okay, that's what we call responsive desire. Okay, spontaneous desire would have been the decision, oh, I'm really hungry, I should go and get something to eat right now. Okay, so when we're in this state of stress and guilt and all the different things that we've mentioned so far, we actually aren't just at neutral desire of like, I don't think I'm hungry right now. We're at sort of minus. Okay, and we have to be very careful when we have minus desire not to have a spiral that goes down and creates more and more and more minus. Okay, and putting ourselves in a sexual situation when we're not in the right frame of mind can sometimes actually make the spiral go deeper and deeper. Okay, and make the minus desire go deeper into the minus. Okay, because telling ourselves that we should do something creates a lot of guilt, and often can mean that we're being intimate when we don't want to be intimate and we're not enjoying the experience. So again, many of you might have heard me use this anyone who's heard me talk, I think this is a metaphor that I use quite frequently. But imagine that you go into a beautiful restaurant with delicious food and everything is taken care of, and it's just wonderful, and you have the most incredible evening together with your spouse, and when you leave, you're thinking, oh, when can we go back there? That would be something that is called having positive desire. Okay, you've had a good experience, you want to go back to it. Okay, if we go to the other total opposite example, is you went to a restaurant where no one you had to wait in line for ages to be seen. You finally got sat down on the table was sticky, you had to call a waiter 5 times to them to come and wipe it. Then they come and bring you the menu after another few times. Everything you want to order isn't on the menu that night. Okay, when it finally does come, okay, it's your husband's food is cold and you found a hair in your soup and you're just like, you know what, let's just get out of here. You just do not want to be there. Okay, you are not going to want to go back to that place. Okay, that is called negative desire. Every time you think of that place, you'll probably have some visceral response in your body and like, ugh. Okay, and then there's the neutral, the sort of zero, where it's 12 o'clock, you're hungry, and I'm going to get a salad, a sandwich, going to bring your packed lunch, whatever it might be. And after you have felt hunger, you've eaten and you're feeling very, very satisfied. And you might not be thinking, oh my gosh, I can't wait for that tomorrow. But again, tomorrow when you're hungry again, you'll go back to the same few things that are on your menu that help nourish and satisfy you. So we want to ensure that when you're intimate with your husband, we're either in, wow, the fantastic restaurant, when can we be doing that again? And we had an amazing time, or a safe space that that you go to that's going to be nourishing and good. So if you are enjoying the things that you're doing together and the space that you're creating, we know we're going to be keeping the spiral going upwards. But if for whatever reason, whether it's due to the stress or the things that are going on in your life beforehand, and you're noticing that you're being together because you feel like you have to, and you're not really enjoying being together, you want to sort of try and take a moment. Try and, again, if you are able to, have the conversation together. What can we be doing differently that might help put us in a space where we can be enjoying this intimacy together, so that we're not just doing this out of have to, and I'm actually not enjoying this. I want to come into this because I want to. I want to come together. It's more a mitzvah when there is the cheshek, when there is the desire. I want to come together when I desire to be together. And when we are together, we feel that we're connecting both emotionally and physically and intellectually, everything all at the same time. So I would say first releasing the shoulds, and then I would say is trying to create a space in which you can do that. And sometimes that we need to invest in that. Okay, I don't like to say it's hard work because I don't know, I don't like hard work, but I like investing. Okay, if you invest money, it grows. If you invest in your children, you see the results. So you want to invest in that relationship. And some people, depending on your age and stage of your life, might need to do something which sounds really sexy, which is, rather than waiting for spontaneous sexual interaction to happen, schedule time together. Okay, and look at your week and look at which days are more heavy work based, or whatever you have the next day. When can you spend the evening together? Okay, when can you create that space, and what are we going to do to build up this desire? What am I going to do? Is it going to be that if we know today is, you know, Sunday and today is a night we want to spend together, so let's start already in the morning. Okay, let's start by making sure that we message each other more during the day, so there's interaction. It's not just they come home and you've been totally separated. How can we connect during the day? Can we share what we're looking forward to doing together? Can we maybe again do some creative activity first? Can we go for a walk? Can we listen to some music? Can we do a puzzle together? Can we, and I know that in busy lives we can't do all of it all of the time, but can we do a little bit more of it some of the time? We don't have to be all or nothing. Okay, and if it's that you've got young kids at home, so how can I ensure that they're in bed a little earlier? Or can we get a babysitter and go out for the evening and do something fun together? And then in terms of just your bedrooms, making sure that you're creating a space whereby you haven't got all the laundry piled on top of your bed, because that isn't going to create such a wonderful atmosphere. But can we, if you're people who like music or candles or whatever it might be, what can you be doing to sort of create this atmosphere which, you know, will want, you know, create an atmosphere where you both want to be together and where you're enjoying the time that you are spending together. So in the little bit of time that I've had, tried to throw in as much as I could. And obviously there's loads more and lots of resources that you could be reading and things that you could, Eden tend to have great blogs as well, that you could take a look at that give sort of further ideas for you to, you know, deepen all your knowledge in this field.
Thank you very much. I just think we might have time for a question or two. That's it. If anybody has a question.
Yeah, we asked that questions be written in the chat, and then we'll read them out loud. We just found that to work much better in the past than having people open the mic.
So far, I think you've both answered a lot of the questions. I'm not sure that anything has been left unanswered at the moment.
So I think we had a question come in the past. Let me open up.
I don't see.
I don't.
Okay,
No,
so
I'm not sure
we
that
answered everyone's questions. That's great.
Thank you, everybody.
It was fantastic and clear and targeted, amazing information in such a short time. There you go.
And can I just say one thing?
Yeah.
Yes.
I just want to say that I run the Chabad Mikveh in Melbourne, and ever since October the 7th, our numbers have tripled.
Wow.
Oh, that's really good to hear.
I'm having help. I'm having washing 3 times a night, 3 loads a night, and I'm seeing women that I've never seen before here in Melbourne. And thank you for this. This has just been so inspiring and wonderful. And I wouldn't expect anything less from the Eden Centre.
Amy, thank you. That's really marvelous to hear. Thank you so much.
So someone asked actually about their husband. Someone wrote in and asked how their husband has been feeling more depressed and is having a really hard time and struggling since the war started, because he's not in Israel and he has family fighting here, and he feels like he's not doing enough, especially as a man, to be able to protect his family and his people, and how she can support him. So I just want to say that everything we spoke about now, I know this evening is geared towards women, but everything we spoke about is true for men as well. Men also, when they're experiencing stress, oftentimes have less desire. They also need to be able to work through the stress response cycle. Men can also experience responsive desire. So everything we spoke about now, if you feel like that's relevant to your partner, to your husband, to first of all, to have that compassion for them and what they're going through, and to understand, I hope that we gave you tools and language that could help you understand where they're coming from. And to maybe be able to talk to them about this and to be able to implement the things that we've discussed.
And I would also say they can listen to the recording. I mean, we wanted to create a safe space for women here and open it up just to women. But when the recording is there, I think the only faces you will see are Yonina, Simona, and mine. And so no one else will be seen on it. And I think it's totally safe to, you know, share it with your husbands to listen to, because sometimes for them to hear it from someone else other than their spouse is more useful. When you can definitely have a discussion together, but sometimes when they can hear it from a third party, they can it can be accepted sometimes in a more easy way.
That's very much true, Gabrielle. In fact, there was a comment that came in from a woman asking, how can I not offend my husband by bringing up these topics? So I think the recording will be a wonderful way for a third party to impart this information.
I think I think, Simona, that's a really important thing to mention, is that we can offend our husband. Okay. And therefore we do have to be careful, and it is a risk. I think intimacy and being vulnerable is a risky process, and being able to realize we then need to have what we call differentiation as a couple. We need to be able to differentiate that this is how I'm feeling, and it's actually nothing to do with you. This is how I'm responding to this is how I respond. My natural way is to have fight or flight or fright when there is stress and trauma. And all in my life up until now, I've always handled it in this way, and I need to learn how to respond to it maybe differently together with you. And we need to learn as a team how we can respond, and not to be offended or feel like whatever the way I'm responding is actually because of something that you're lacking or you can't give me. It's really got nothing to do with that. But that it's so important.
It's these responses. I think we should probably bring the question and answer segment to a close, just because we like to keep it tight.
Via has something to add.
Oh,
yes. Just very quickly ask you or comment. First of all, thank you both so much, all three of you. Really special, very important topic, sensitively approached. I would like to add that I think that sometimes it isn't so bad if you can't have proper sexual intimacy, if one or two of the partners just aren't up to it, but you can still hug and cuddle. And I think that might add to the feeling of respect, and that you shouldn't insult your spouse. And it can go both ways, that some of us might be paralyzed at that particular point, even with all the relaxation techniques and all the mind techniques, but just holding each other and just understanding each other. And that is also an intimate thing to do, even if there is not full relations. I just wanted to add.
Yeah,
that's so important to recognize that when we talk about intimacy, a lot of times we immediately think about sexual intimacy, but we mentioned it a few times that we actually divide intimacy. There's emotional intimacy, physical intimacy, and sexual intimacy. And for many people, really emotional and physical intimacy are the foundation for sexual intimacy. And so even if, like you said, and even within sexual intimacy, there is a whole range, right? We also a lot of times think about sex as intercourse, but there are so many other ways that we can express sexual affection and touch that don't necessarily have to lead directly into intercourse. So for every couple to be able to have those conversations and to implement what they can, like Gabrielle mentioned, to let go of the shoulds, what we should be doing, what it should look like, and to see what can we actually do now, what's accessible to us, what is right for us now, and to be able to communicate as much as possible. And I think that's one of the goals of this lecture, is to be able to give language to talk about it with our partner in a way that expresses actually what's going on, and to help give clarity.
Excellent.
So thank you so much. Thank you for this wisdom. Can I remind everybody that tonight was a free event, and to be able to provide everybody with this information. And if you did enjoy it, please consider making a donation, and you can sign up to the Eden newsletter as well. Tonight we broke the silence, and we broke the silence on the impact of war on intimacy. So as we conclude our evening, know that this conversation doesn't end here. You can contact the Eden Centre for further support or guidance. And I wish to thank Naomi Grumish of the Eden Centre, Gabrielle Hertz, and Janina Rubenstein, and all of you who joined tonight. We pray for the safe return of our soldiers and our hostages, and peaceful times for all the Jewish people in Israel and around the world. Good night.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you
Very much.